Hi there, welcome to Kate's Kitchen. Today we are going to prepare Nashville hot chicken, and right now we're going to show you the very first step that you take when preparing the chicken. So anyway, let's start rolling, shall we?
What we're going to do right now is split the breast because this is too thick to make a sandwich. So when you get it in the store, a chicken breast will have a side over here that is called the rib meat. And you just cut that off and save it for later. And then this tail here, it just comes down to a long point. Just cut that off. All you're trying to do is make a neater piece and size to make a sandwich out of it. Now, because it is so thick, can you see what I'm doing here? Cutting down horizontally down the middle to make two fillets, so to speak. Okay, see, now we got these two pieces here. Okay, one is the bottom. The piece that was next to the ribs is considered to be the bottom part. That one's going to pound out a little bit easier. I'm going to put it in a bag to do the pounding. This one is what you'd call the top part. And there's a little bit of a film on here. So before we pound, we're going to do these snips. And on both pieces, if you'd like, you can do a couple snips around the outside edges. It gives more places for the breading to get in, so it makes for a nice, crunchy, crispy piece. Okay, so we're going to start with the top part. So now you're going to take a pounder or a glass or whatever you have, and these are slightly frozen. They're not frozen solid, they're slightly frozen because it's easier to cut it in half. And it's also a little easier to pound. So this is going to get loud. So let me move this. This is about the thickness that you want, so you don't want that big. See how it was like a meatball before? See this? This one's one that's not cut yet. See the difference? How thick? You wouldn't want that on a sandwich. That's why you cut it in half, and then you pound it, and see, you're going by the size of your bun also. But you have to remember that once you bread it and dip it, it's going to wind up being about twice this big.
Okay.
And so now I'm just going to I'll do that to all four pieces, and then I'll put them in a back in a Ziploc bag until it's time to put them in the buttermilk bath. And we'll do that about 4 hours before we're going to fry them. Okay, now we're going to move on to step 2 of our Nashville hot chicken sandwiches, which is marinating the chicken. Remember, in the last step we sliced them in half horizontally and pounded them. Now we're going to make our marinade. So the first step of the marinade is cold buttermilk. And we're going to take 2 cups. And if you're making more than 4 sandwiches, just double it, double the recipe. But this is good for 4 sandwiches. So we're going to take 2 cups of buttermilk, pour it into a bowl that's big enough to fit all of your chicken steaks, as I'll call them. Next thing is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Next, 1 teaspoon cayenne. And if I didn't mention it before, I want to mention now that this is a hot sandwich. If you don't like jalapenos on all your food and all of that, then not in this step, but I'll tell you when, just reduce the amount of heat in your hot oil. So 1 teaspoon cayenne. Ground cayenne pepper. Next thing is just a dash of black pepper. Now we're going to take a fork or a whisk, whatever you prefer, and just blend this. Doesn't have to be perfectly blended. The longer it sits, when it's sitting in the refrigerator marinating, it will meld all together. So don't worry if you see lumps and so on. That's fine. All right, the next step I'm going to do is unwrap all of our chicken steaks and put them in the buttermilk. I've taken all the chicken out of their plastic bags that they were in. I put 2 in the dish here. I wanted to show you that not every steak is going to be the same size or the same shape. That's okay. We're just looking for approximate thickness. So we put all of those into our bowl. We make sure they're all submerged. Once you get them in there, they don't have to stay under. That's okay. See, that's fine. And then, like I say, if you're going to do more than 4 steaks, use a larger bowl, use more buttermilk, and so on. Next thing you want to do is cover this with saran wrap and put it in the refrigerator for approximately 4 hours. What this step does is tenderizes the chicken, but we're also going to use this buttermilk later in the breading process. So we'll move on next, after these marinade, to the breading process. Okay, our chicken is marinating in the refrigerator, and while that's marinating, we're going to get some prep work done. So we'll be ready to do the breading and the frying. So what we're going to want to have out is a bowl for the breading. I use Dixie fry. You can use something else if you like. I just can't guarantee how the crust would come out. So I recommend using Dixie fry. There's 2 packets in each box. In here I have 2 packets, but I may need a 3rd one. I'll know as I go along, and it's okay if you just need to add some more. So we'll have our buttermilk here, and we'll have our breading. And what we have here is a rack. Once they are dipped and breaded, they're going to go on this rack to set for about 30 to 45 minutes. What that does is helps ensure that the crust won't crack off of your chicken when you bite into it. So that resting is important. Next, over here, what we need to have ready is several paper towels and a paper plate. We'll go over this in a moment. Over here, what we have is your buns, your burger buns. And these are brioche buns. They just tend to stand up a little better to not get soggy. Your sandwich won't get as soggy. So I recommend brioche buns, but you brush the top and the bottom with butter. Then you put them face down on a cookie sheet with either foil or parchment paper and bake them in the oven for about 350 for about 5 to 10 minutes. Just have to check on them and see when they're warm. You don't want them too crispy, you just want them to be warmed. Next, what we have here is the Nashville hot chicken oil. The recipe will be posted for you, but see how it separates when it sits a while? There's a separation. That's no problem. When you get it out and heat it up in the microwave for about 3-4 minutes, all your seasonings and spices have sunk to the bottom. That's okay. Just stir it up, give it a good stir till it's all combined, and during the process you might need to stir it a couple more times. That's no problem. Okay, next we're going to go over here to the stove. What we have over here is a paper plate with paper towels on it. That's for draining the chicken once it comes out of the frying pan and after it's dipped in the Nashville oil. And I like to use a fork to turn the chicken when it's frying. You can use tongs, but I found it sticks to the breading and it pulls it away. So, and that can happen even with a fork, but I found it doesn't happen as often with a fork. So I'm going to be making 4 fairly large chicken fillets here. So I've got 2 pans with, I would say, less than 1 inch of oil in each one. We're not deep frying, but when you add the chicken, later I'll show you when we do that process, the oil will rise, so that's plenty of oil. And so this is prep. We want to have all this ready for when we start the next step of breading. Okay, the next step is to get your marinated chicken out of the refrigerator, and I've already done 3 here, but you pull them out of the buttermilk, let as much drain as you can, and then you want to use those paper towels and paper plate that we had there to pat them dry. Well, pat them. You're trying to get the most of the moisture of the buttermilk off, but it doesn't have to be completely dry. This step helps prevent your crust from falling off when you bite into it, also, like we talked about, sitting on the rack. Okay, in a moment, we'll go to the next step of dredging. Okay, now we're on to the breading. To me, this is the worst part of the whole process. Messy. But anyway, okay, we take our patted dry chicken that we took out of the marinade, and first we put it in the Dixie fry, and you're trying to make sure you get every edge covered, every one of those little creases covered with Dixie fry. Okay. Shake it off a little bit, put it in the buttermilk. You could use forks for this. I just can't seem to get in that habit. Now again, you coat the chicken really good, trying to get all edges that you feel that are wet. Turn it over. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing again. This is a double dip. It gives you extra crust, extra crispy. Okay, now try to make a little well so that your chicken sits down so you have plenty on the sides to put on top like that. Okay, so we're going to make sure it's in all the edges. We're going to turn it over again. Was that 1 dip or 2?
That was 2.
Okay, thank you. My assistant here.
Huh.
Okay, trying to make sure we got all of the wet. See all those nice craggly places? That's going to make a nice crispy sandwich. Now it goes on to the rack where it's going to sit for 30 to 45 minutes before you fry. That's another way of preventing the crust from coming off when you bite into it. Okay, next will be frying. Okay, now we're ready to fry, finally. So a test to see if your oil's ready. Drop a little bit of the coating mix. You see how it's sizzling? That tells you your oil is ready and it's the right temperature. So now we're going to take them one at a time. And you see how much bigger these are than when we first got that first fillet out of the freezer ready to cut it. And you don't want so much oil in the pan. Regular vegetable oil, because there you go. See how that's plenty of oil. I only put like an inch of oil in the pan, but now that you have all the fillets in there, they're really coming up. I have 2 pans because I have so many fillets. Okay, we're gonna cut and come back in a minute, and I'll show you how to test and see if they're ready to turn. Okay, we've got the temperature at a medium-high heat, and you see the color on that? That's when you want to turn. Okay, so we're going to turn those now. And the other thing we've done is put our buns, the hamburger buns, in the oven. And I just took those out, the ones that we buttered. And remember we talked about using a fork instead of a spatula. It's helpful. The time is about 10 to 12 minutes total. So you want about 5 to 6 minutes per side. Okay, so don't be afraid to adjust your temperature when you're frying. If it feels like they're browning too quickly, like this one, don't be afraid to turn your temperature down a little bit. Okay, you can tell when they're done by sticking your fork in the center, and if clear juice or no juice comes out, then they're done. So the next step is we're going to set it there for a second and let it drain a little bit. Then we're going to dip it in the hot Nashville hot oil twice. We're going to let it drain a little bit. Then we're going to dip it again. The next step we're going to talk about is making the sandwich. Okay, so I put a little bit of mayonnaise on each side of the bun, the top and the bottom. Put the chicken steak on there. The only other thing you need to know is the devil's spit sauce, which is like a spicy barbecue sauce, Alabama white sauce, and pickles. Then you build how you like. A lot of people like one or the other, and enjoy.
Okay, so when I prepared my sandwich, I used first the Alabama white sauce, and then the devil's spit sauce on top, and then these great pickles on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on.
You're digging in.
I'm digging in. Now, this is gonna be quite a bite. Here we go.
Good crunch.
Good crunch. Perfect. That is delicious. Best sandwich I ever had. I love it.
Thanks for watching and joining us here at Kate's Country Kitchen. Join us again next week as Kate prepares me a good old-fashioned Cajun lobster dinner with all the trimmings. Again, thanks for watching, and see you again soon, right here at Kate's Country Kitchen.